Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I've always wanted to say that. This is my first exclusive review that's being posted only here on YouTube. For our inaugural video, we're going to be talking about a book that comes out on January 28th, Carving Shadows into Gold by Brigid Kemmerer. Technically, we're doing a review on both books in the series so far. Book 1 is Forging Silver into Stars. Book 2 is Carving Shadows into Gold. I was very fortunate to get an ARC for this. I am a huge Brigid Kemmerer fan. If we pan down, these are the Brigid Kemmerer shelves right here. I got a little collection. This will be a full spoiler-free review for this book. There may be some small spoilers for the first book, but there will be a disclaimer before I say anything, so don't worry if you haven't read the book yet. That ring light is really aggressive on these shiny covers. These books have been sort of promoted as their own standalone series, but in fact, this is a sequel series to Brigid Kemmerer's other more famous work, which is the Curse So Dark and Lonely, or the Cursebreakers trilogy. First book is Curse So Dark and Lonely, second one is Heart So Fierce and Broken, and third is A Vow So Bold and Deadly. This is a completed trilogy. It's a YA series. The first book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is one of those series where the first book is fine, but then they get better and better. Then there is a time jump. Don't ask me how long of a time jump between this and this. I don't remember. It's like 5 years. Not a huge time jump, but one of the minor secondary characters that comes into this series in book 2 or 3 is one of the main characters in this series, and his name is Tycho, and we love Tycho. He's my baby. I am going to strongly suggest you read this series first, because if you don't and you start the other series, this series will be fully spoiled for you. A lot of the world building stuff is in here. I do think there's things that will happen in here that you'll be like, wait, what? For example, our main character in this series, her name is Harper. She's from Washington, D.C., and she gets pulled into this fantasy realm with magic and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, that's all explained here. In here, they just mentioned Washington, D.C., and I think it'd be a little confusing for people to be like, what's happening right now? But let's talk primarily about these books. I'm going to give you a little synopsis of Forging Silver into Stars, since this is the first book in the series. So our friend Tycho is now 19 years old, and he's the king's courier. Basically, his job is to travel between Emberfall and the Crystal Palace, which originally was a divided country that hated each other. And the whole battle between merging these countries and all of that is in this series. One day he has to stop off in this remote town called Briarlock, but when he's there, he ends up meeting a very handsome blacksmith named Jax, who's my favorite. And basically, Jax, who is the blacksmith of Briarlock, his father is a son of a bitch. Jax is, dealing with a lot of cruelty from his dad. But then he meets Tycho, and Tycho has magic in these books, and he kind of sees like maybe this little alternative to where his life could go. Then Jax has a best friend named Callan, who really doesn't trust anyone with magic because her parents were killed by magic wielders. And in fact, her dad was likely killed by Gray, who is one of the main characters of this series. Basically, there's like a rebellion, an underground rebellion happening against the royal family of the Crystal Palace. And Callan and Jax get kind of brought into this rebellion, even though it goes against their queen, their king, and Tycho, who Jax is starting to fall for. I loved the Cursebreakers series. Like I said, these books got better as they went. Then when I read this one when it came out, this was an instant 5-star read. I loved this book. What Brigid Kemmerer does really well is that there is no black and white. There isn't bad guys and good guys. Everything is shades of gray. So for example, this whole book, you're getting POVs from the main two characters, which is Harper and Wren. They're talking about the bad guys that are over at the Crystal Palace and all this kind of stuff. You're like, yeah, those guys suck. We don't like those guys. Then you start getting POVs from those apparently bad guys in this book, and you start going, wait a second, but they actually make sense why they're doing what they do. Brigid's character development is unmatched in all of her books that I have read. It's always a solid plot. It is character driven, which I personally really like. And what happened after I read this first book is that I am in love with Jax and Tycho's story. So now let's get into book 2 of what is probably going to be a trilogy. Brigid tends to write trilogies, so I'm assuming this will be a trilogy as well. There's not a ton of action that happens in this book. It is still primarily a very character-based book. Some people will like that, some people won't like that. For me, I love these characters so much that I didn't care that it was a lot of talking, it was a lot of character development. I think if you read this book and you think it's too slow, you're probably gonna think this one's slower. Me, I didn't care. I loved it. Now, just a little bit of spoiler for book 1, but it's important to talk about in terms of the plot for book 2. So basically, Jax and Callie have been separated. Callie has gone to the Crystal Palace. Jax has gone to Emberfell. If you're expecting a lot of stuff between Jax and Tycho, it's not in this book. Tycho gets taken away almost immediately to have to go back to the Crystal Palace, and they are basically not together this entire book, which killed me. And I sent some choice words to Brigid Kemmerer about it. We get a lot more development in Callie's story. She has a lot of stuff to work out with the nobleman Alec. Is he a bad guy? Is he not a bad guy? I honestly, I don't know. I think he's going to end up being a good guy because his intentions are for the best. His execution is the worst. This delves in a lot more into the Scravers and what's going on with all of them. They're having their own whole separate rebellion issue that is starting to leak over into the human realms. It's got a lot to say about magic, who should be allowed to wield magic. Is magic bad? Is it good? Is it helpful? And I like all this discussion because I can see the argument for both sides. Overall, I loved this book, but it's because I love the characters so much. I'm super excited for book 3. There's going to be a lot of story left to wrap up still. If you told me that she was going to do another spin-off trilogy of this world, I would fully believe it and be on board for it. So the short review, read it. Read it. It's good. It's fun as hell. When this comes out, I believe there's a Barnes & Noble special edition as well as just a regular edition. We haven't gotten any announcements from any book boxes that should be doing it. The only one who did a copy of it in terms of book boxes was Fairy Loot. So this is the Fairy Loot edition of this book. I would assume they will be doing a book 2 of this. Now, please also remember this is a YA series. All 5 books are YA books. Her level of spice has increased ever so slightly between them, but it is not a descriptive spice at all. Personally, I think it's probably a 1 to a 1.5 spice meter. You're really here for the characters. You're not here for the spice. So Cursebreaker got a range from 4 to 5 stars. Forging Silver got 5 stars. Carving Shadows into Gold got 5 stars. So yes, highly recommend. Please check it out. Remember, it comes out January 28th. Thank you to Bloomsbury for sending me an ARC copy of this book. It went to the best of hands. This will be in my collection forever. And I cannot wait for you to send me an ARC of book 3. Wink, wink, right? Just put me on the list now. Actually, you're probably... Oh, I just realized you're probably not going to do an ARC for book 3 because it'll be the 3rd and final book. I'm going to have to wait till it comes out like a peasant. Thanks so much for watching the first YouTube book review. There is more coming shortly. I made a list of all the books coming out soon that I was going to review, and I lost that piece of paper. So what's next? I don't know. We'll find out together.